All right, good morning. Happy Monday. Hope things are going well for you. Hope you saw the weekly plan that I posted. Just a couple of videos this week and, working on a worksheet again. I'll be putting in the grades today from last week's worksheet. Thanks for doing that. We're going to be continuing on with Southeast Asia. Not much more to talk about necessarily, but we're going to continue on into a more into the modern era. Before we move on to probably Australia and New Zealand in that area. We only have 4 weeks left of school, so we're just going to, keep plugging away. And soon enough, you will have a little bit more time on your hands, a little less worry with school each day. So let's just continue on together and make it through together. In the meantime, what we're going to be talking about this Southeast Asia is how the spice trade going into the modern era is going to shape the area. One of the things that we do see going into the modern era is continued conflict. For instance, the Thai kingdom, Thailand, and Burma are going to be in conflict. This actually has a pretty important result because what happens is the Burmese are going to sack the Thai capital in the 1700s, and this is going to lead to the founding of Bangkok. Bangkok is, in many ways, a pretty modern city and new to history in some ways too. Although, in the United States, we think of the 1700s as a very long time ago. But of course, many of these places we've been studying have roots that go back to the 800s or whatever else. So what we're seeing here is the foundation of a major world city coming out of this conflict. There's also going to be conflict between Vietnam and the Angkor. It's one of the sort of last things that put the nail in the coffin of the Angkor kingdom. But Vietnam is going to take control of the Mekong River, which is a very important river system through Southeast Asia. And that control is going to be part of the reason that the Angkor kind of fades away. Thailand and Vietnam become increasingly strong, and Angkor kingdom in the middle is going to lose power, lose really its place in the world altogether. The other thing that's happening is in the Malay Peninsula, there's more and more Muslim influence because of trade, first off. Now, interestingly enough, in Southeast Asia as a whole, Islam and Christianity are growing in their influence, not necessarily replacing Buddhism or Hinduism. They never do actually replace those religions, those older religions, but there's more and more influence. If you travel to really any of these countries, you will see, Catholic cathedrals and churches that go back that far, mosques that go back that far. So there's a shift in the culture. And the biggest shift we want to see is the kinds of governments that come out of this era and that kind of give us in the modern era. So what we have is 4 types of government. The first is what we'll call a Buddhist style of kingship. And the Buddhist style of kingship will have roots in Cambodia, in Laos, in Thailand, and in Burma. And actually, essentially, many of those same principles are still in place in those countries. Cambodia still has a king. Thailand still has a monarchy. So does Laos. So in the conceptualization here with a Buddhist style of kingship, the king is thought to be superior than the rest of the people. He's not just human. He's a link between the human society and the universe. If you can recall, remember the Buddhists have a conceptualization that says, in a sense, there's this all soul that's the power behind the universe, and eventually we're all absorbed into it. We cease to be individuals. We cease to be ourselves. We become a part of the all soul. Well, the king in this case is thought to be the link between this all soul, the universe, and then human society. But that's not the only style of kingship we've got. We've also got the Javanese. Remember, Java is in the Malay archipelago. It's one of the major islands there, sort of the eastern portion of Malaysia. And they are influenced by India. Remember, Islam had come, out of Arabia through Central Asia, which is like Pakistan, Afghanistan, and down into India, where the Mughals took power. and had power for a long, long time. And then they started to go into the Far East and into the Malay archipelago as well. So the Javanese style of kingship is rooted in sort of Indian traditions. And in this case, the kings are thought to have a sacred quality. They're more than just a link to heaven. They themselves are divine. And when the Javanese conceptualize a king, they think of the king and the palace and the ruling network there as being sort of the center of the universe. And so their goal is to get everybody to wrap their minds and lives around the palace, and the palace gains power that way. As people think, okay, that's the center of the universe. The king is divine. He's more than just human. And like I said, that has its roots in India. There's two more kinds. A more typically Islamic style of leadership. The Javanese are influenced by Islam, but the idea that a human being would be divine is certainly not Muslim. But there is Muslim style of government in the area. The Islamic sultans are important. Now, sultan is a word that really just means ruler. There's various types of vocabulary that we maybe didn't get that much detail on when we talked about Islam, but you have a caliph who's like a religious leader and initially also has political power. A sultan is mostly just thought of as having political power. And so in the Malay Peninsula, there's these Islamic sultans, and these sultans might have power over a small area or a large area, kind of like a kingdom, basically. And they're thought to be mortal, but they're also revered. They have special qualities. They're thought to be wise or extra, holy or something like that. And they do build up a bureaucracy. So what we see there with the type of government we're talking about is not just a single king or a sultan ruling from on high, but lots of times they would have, for instance, like a vizier, a second in command who kind of makes everything happen that he wants to have happen. And so a bureaucracy builds up so that the sultan has a decree, but that the government takes care of making sure it all takes place. Lastly, we have the Vietnamese emperors. In this case, this is influenced more by China than it is by the lands to the west. And so it's in the Chinese style, and that means there's going to be teachings of Confucius involved. And remember, Confucius has these ideas of relationships being so essential to life. And the essential nature of these relationships means that you should do your duty within the relationship. And that means the subjects should be loyal, and the ruler should be a loving and respectful ruler, giving the subjects their due and honoring their subjects as humans. In this case, there's also the sense that there's this sort of mandate of heaven. I don't know if you remember that phrase, where heaven has chosen the ruler's appointed by heaven, and so there's a way in which the ruler is an intermediary between heaven and earth. So the people can look to the ruler because the ruler has sort of special access to what's the spiritual realm, whatever that looks like, the gods, spirits, the all-soul, what that is asking for, what that wants from human society. So we have these four different types of governments that are going to be moving into this new era, the kind of pre-modern and modern era, and then we're going to look a little bit more at how culture is being shaped out of that the next couple of days. Hope you're doing well, and hope that you've got the energy to finish this off strong. Just 4 more weeks.